Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. This is an adjudicatory hearing before the Massachusetts Gaming Commission relative to a request for a finding of durable suitability for American Wagering, Inc., doing business as Caesars Sportsbook, which currently holds a Category 3 mobile sports wagering operator license. I will refer to Caesars Sportsbook as Caesars. My name is Jordan Maynard, and I am the interim chair of the commission. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Commissioner Eileen O'Brien, Brad Hill, and Nikisha Skinner. The entire commission will preside over the hearing and decision of this matter. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with 205 CMR 101.01, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 10 and 11, and 801 CMR 1.02. The informal fair hearing rules. This hearing is being conducted via remote collaboration technology. Before we begin, I would like to explain the process that will govern this proceeding. First, a notice of hearing was provided to Caesars in advance of today's hearing. Therein, it identified the issues that this hearing is intended to address. The commission has indicated that it will specifically be considering the issues discussed in the notice, including the following: the durable suitability of Caesars pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011, the contents of the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau's suitability report. I will now turn to our Deputy General Counsel, Justin Stempeck, to explain the suitability standard that we will be considering during our discussion today. Good afternoon, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today we're here to consider a durable finding of suitability for Caesars under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1. The Commission adopted section 215 of the regulations to govern suitability determinations, and it included provisions allowing for a durable finding of suitability, which is also known as the final determination. It also included a provision related to preliminary suitability. Caesars currently holds the preliminary finding of suitability, which the Commission approved on December 20th, 2022, along with the temporary Category 3 sports wagering operator license. The finding of preliminary suitability was based on an evaluation of the criteria set forth in 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 2, 218.06 subsection 5F, and General Laws Chapter 23N, Section 6D. Just as a quick refresher, the suitability criteria that are enumerated in sections 215.01 subsection 2, section 218.06 subsection 5F, and General Laws 23N, Section 6D include the following: the overall reputation of the applicant, including but not limited to the integrity, honesty, good character, and reputation of the applicant and qualifiers, the financial stability, integrity, and background of the applicant and qualifiers, the business practices and the business ability of the applicant to establish and maintain a successful sports wagering operation, whether the applicant or qualifier has a history of compliance with gaming or sports wagering licensing requirements in other jurisdictions, whether the applicant qualifier at the time of the application is a defendant in litigation, the suitability of all parties and interests of license, including affiliates and close associates, and the financial resources of the applicant, whether the applicant or qualifier is ineligible to hold a license under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 4, General Laws Chapter 23N, Section 9A, or General Laws Chapter 23N, Section 6E, whether the applicant or qualifier has been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude, whether and to what extent the applicant or qualifier has associated with members of organized crime and other persons of disreputable character, and the extent to which the applicant or qualifier has cooperated with the IEB during the review of the application. By the terms of 205 CMR 215 of our regulations, any durable finding of suitability must be supported by clear and convincing evidence, which is not just substantial evidence, which is a lower standard that used for remainder of licensing applications. Our jurisprudence tells us that clear and convincing proof exists when the evidence induces in the mind of the fact finder a reasonable belief that the facts asserted are highly probably true, that the probability that they are true or exist is substantially greater than the probability that they are false or do not exist. For evidence to be clear and convincing, it must be sufficient to convey a high degree of probability that the proposition to be proved is true, and it must be strong and positive and full, clear, and decisive. In the matter before you, you may choose to award a durable finding if you conclude the applicant and each of its qualifiers has demonstrated their suitability by clear and convincing proof. Such a finding would be a positive determination under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection E, and may include conditions and restrictions if applicable. If the commission determines that the evidentiary burden on suitability is not met, it would issue a negative determination with respect to suitability. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Justin. You would think after 4 years I would have that down pat, but we appreciate that explanation. I understand that Caesars is represented by counsel here today, and I will ask that Mr. Jeff Hendricks please identify himself and his team.
Hello, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jeff Hendricks with Caesars Entertainment. I'm our Assistant General Counsel, Senior Vice President over our regulatory compliance functions. I'll introduce our team in just a moment. At the outset, I do want to say we appreciate the opportunity to present in front of you today. And we also want to thank the staff and investigators who compiled the investigative report and have worked with us over the last kind of more than 2 years now on our initial and now potential durable finding of suitability. So thank you. Our intention here today is to kind of allow the staff to walk through the investigative reports, answer any questions, provide context where helpful. And with that, I will start with the introduction of our CEO, Tom Reed.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Reed, CEO of Caesars.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Anthony Carano, President and Chief Operating Officers of Caesars.
Brett Yunker, Chief Financial Officer of Caesars.
I'm Eric Hession, the President of Caesars Digital.
And I'm Ed Quatman, Chief Legal Officer for Caesars.
All right. Anybody else, Mr. Hendricks?
That concludes all of our presenters here.
All right. Well, we thank you all. At the conclusion of my opening comments, this proceeding will commence with the IEB's presentation of its findings to the Commission pursuant to 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1 and 205 CMR 115.03. Any commissioner may ask a question of anyone presenting information at any point during or following the presentation. At the conclusion of the IEB's presentation, the licensee, through counsel, will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions of any individual who presented information on behalf of the IEB as well. At the conclusion of the IEB's presentation, the licensee will be given the same opportunity to make a presentation. They may call any witnesses and present any other evidence they desire. As before, any commissioner may ask any question of any witness or presenter at any time during or after any presentation. Caesars may raise any objection it desires at any time. However, the basis for all objections must be clearly stated. After the licensee's presentation, the Commission will address each topic area from the notice of hearing in turn, and each commissioner will have a full opportunity to ask questions of any witnesses concerning those topic areas before moving on. Finally, at the conclusion of the presentations of all the evidence, the licensee will be provided an opportunity to make closing remarks summing up its views on suitability. Before we begin, I understand that there are a number of exhibits for consideration at this hearing that have been submitted in advance. Those exhibits are as follows, and I will read through the list. The notice of hearing, the IEB report regarding full suitability investigation in regards to the application of American Wagering, Inc., doing business as Caesars Sportsbook for a Category 3 sports wagering license, tethered, dated August 22nd, 2024. Number 3, an IEB report regarding review for preliminary suitability dated December 12th, 2022. Number 4, report regarding review for financial suitability of American Wagering, Inc., doing business as Caesars Sportsbook dated August 22nd, 2024. I will apologize in advance on any names that I mess up, despite the fact that you introduced yourself earlier. Anthony Carano, individual qualifier report. Eric Hessian's individual qualifier reports. Edward Quatman, individual qualifier reports. Thomas Reig's individual qualifier reports. And Brett Yunker's individual qualifier reports. Are there any objections to these exhibits being marked and entered into evidence?
No objections.
Thank you. And none from Councilor Kramer for the record?
Correct, none from the IEB.
Thank you. These exhibits shall be admitted into evidence. For purposes of ensuring a clean record, I ask that everyone, when possible, please refer to the aforementioned exhibits by exhibit number when referring to any of the documents. If anyone would like to have any additional documents entered into evidence during the course of the hearing, please ensure that they are properly introduced and marked for the record. As explained, the Commission anticipates that its inquiry at this proceeding will be related to the matters addressed in the notice of hearing relative to the licensee's durable finding of suitability. In the event that a line of questioning conducted by the Commission moves into an area that has not been included in the report or notice, but that is material to the final determination of this matter, any party may request a recess in the proceeding in order to review the issue. The Commission will deliberate privately and make a final decision at the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of the hearing. The decision will be issued as promptly as possible. If at any point during the Commission's deliberations it determines that further testimonial or documentary evidence is desirable, it reserves the right to ask the appropriate party to provide such evidence prior to a final decision being made. We will now swear all the witnesses in. Counselors, are all the individuals you anticipate presenting testimony in this matter present on this call?
Yes.
Yes, as well on behalf of Caesars.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Thank you, CEC Kramer. If there is anyone who is not present who will later testify, it will be up to you to alert the Commission that they have yet to be placed under oath. Anyone who will be testifying at this proceeding, please raise your right hand. Give me just a second to click through the boxes. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will provide before the Commission at this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Yes, I do.
All right. For the record, everyone responded in the affirmative. A proceeding of this nature necessarily requires the consideration of a wide variety of information that takes several forms. In this case, some of the information and documentation may include commercially sensitive information, the public discussion of such information may place an entity at a competitive disadvantage if such information were to be publicly discussed. For the Commission to be able to execute its legal obligations effectively and diligently prior to making a final finding, it must be at liberty to fully inquire relative to any of these sensitive matters without compromising the individuals or entities involved. To do otherwise would be at a minimum unfair and potentially unlawful. Accordingly, my colleagues and I may elect to exercise the discretion afforded in accordance with 205 CMR 101.01, paragraph 7, to close this proceeding to the public to fully address certain matters. Under this same regulatory section, Caesars may request that portions of this hearing be closed to the public as well, and any such request will be considered in turn. Before we begin, it's my understanding that a pre-hearing conference was conducted in this matter on Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, with representatives of the licensee, the IEB, and the legal counsel, at which procedural and evidentiary issues were discussed. Does anyone have any preliminary issues or objections they would like to raise at this time?
No.
None from CEC Kramer. Mr. Hendricks?
No.
With that, I will ask the council on behalf of Caesars, Mr. Hendricks, to please proceed with any opening remarks he would like to make. Mr. Hendricks?
Thank you, Chairman Maynard. No real substantive remarks other than what we discussed earlier. We appreciate the commission's time, the attention and professionalism of the staff on the review and the report. We understand the comprehensive summary of those reports and questions in those lines. So the team is ready and prepared to answer any questions that you may have and participate fully in the discussions. And with those remarks, we would welcome the beginning of the proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. We will now turn to CEC Kramer to make any opening remarks on behalf of the IEB, and then we will move directly into the, feel free to move directly on into the IEB's presentation.
Okay, I will do. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. First, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to address the suitability of the applicant, American Wagering Incorporated, doing business at Caesars Sportsbook. I will also try to refer to the applicant, at least in my remarks, as Caesars throughout. As an initial matter, I just want to recognize the members of the IEB who worked on the suitability investigation. On the state police side, we had a team led by Sergeant David Collette that was comprised of our current GEU members, along with retired GEU members working in a contract capacity that lent their efforts and their expertise. On the financial investigation side, we had a team led by our Financial Investigations Division Chief, Monica Chang, of MGC investigators, along with investigators from the firm of RSM, who worked extremely diligently and thoughtfully on this investigation. Additionally, I want to recognize IEB Director Monahan, who came aboard right in the middle of this process and has provided guidance and leadership throughout. I also want to thank the applicant, Caesars, who's been cooperative and engaged during the investigation. As the Commission recalls, this applicant submitted an application for a tethered Category 3 license pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 6B3. The applicant is tethered to Win Mass LLC's Category 1 sports wagering license. The IEB conducted a review for preliminary suitability pursuant to 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 2A and B and submitted its report regarding its review for preliminary suitability to the Commission. That preliminary report is Exhibit 3, I believe, in your packet. On December 19th, 2022, the Commission voted unanimously at a public meeting to allow Caesars to request a temporary Category 3 sports wagering license subject to the conditions specifically set forth in 205 CMR 220.01. On February 23rd, 2023, the Commission's then Executive Director issued a temporary Category 3 sports wagering license to Caesars. On March 10th, 2023, Caesars received its operation certificate and began its operations the same day. Since that time, our licensing division has rescoped Caesars' application based on the legislative amendment to General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 5B, and 205 CMR 215.01, and originally identified 5 individual qualifiers and 4 entity qualifiers. 2 of those entities filed a petition and received an institutional investor waiver pursuant to 215.02 subsection 3A, which is noted on footnote 4 of page 7 of Exhibit 2, and therefore they were no longer considered qualifiers and did not undergo suitability determinations. The IEB conducted an investigation for full suitability, and its findings are included in the report submitted in anticipation of today's hearing, which is marked as Exhibit 2 in your packet. The IEB's review was performed in accordance with 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1C, which is set out for you on pages 4 through 5 of the IEB's report, again, Exhibit 2. As the Commission knows, suitability is an ongoing concept. The IEB conducted its investigation to assist the Commission in determining whether the applicant is suitable at this time. In determining the suitability of the applicant and its qualifiers, the Commission shall evaluate the following factors as set out in General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 6, 205 CMR 215, and 205 CMR 218. I won't go through them all as they were outlined by Council previously. They're also outlined on pages 5 through 6 of Exhibit 2 for the Commission's review. The IEB reviewed submissions, interviewed qualifiers, had numerous follow-up conversations, visited the headquarters, reviewed the business entity disclosures for entities, reviewed the mass supplemental and multi-jurisdictional personal history disclosures for the individuals, as well as additional information requested from the investigators as needed. All of the individuals submitted the required forms and responded to the supplemental document requests. Our presentation today will give you a brief overview of the investigative process that the IEB undertook and summarize the key points. All of these investigative steps were done to assist the Commission in evaluating whether the applicant has met its affirmative obligation to demonstrate its qualifications, as well as the qualifications of each of the entity and individual qualifiers as of today by clear and convincing evidence. Just to provide an overview of today's presentation, you'll first hear from Kevin Murphy, who's one of our retired GEU civilian investigators who worked on the GEU side of the investigation regarding the scope of his investigation and his findings. You will then hear from our Financial Investigations Division Chief, Monica Chang, who will reintroduce you to Connor Laughlin and Chris Fitzgerald from RSM. Chris and Connor will present the IEB's review for financial suitability for both the applicant and then the individual qualifiers. We will end with the IEB's review of corporate governance with Chris from RSM. Ultimately, you will hear that based on its thorough investigation, the IEB is recommending that the applicant and all of the qualifiers have established their qualifications for durable suitability based on the factors that I noted earlier by clear and convincing evidence. And with that, and with the chair's permission, I'm going to start with our first witness today, who is civilian investigator Kevin Murphy. And I'm going to ask Mr. Murphy to first explain the investigative process that he and other members of GEU undertook, and then summarize his findings for the commission.
Please proceed.
Thanks, Kathleen. Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners and representatives from Caesars Entertainment. For those who I have not met, my name is Kevin Murphy. I'm a civilian investigator assigned to the MGC Investigation and Enforcement Bureau. Assisting me in my portion of the investigation is Sergeant David Collette and Sergeant Kevin Owen. After an in-depth review of all applications and submissions from American Wagering, Inc., doing business as Caesars Sportsbook, a thorough background investigation was conducted regarding this applicant. The applicant consisted of 2 entity qualifiers, William Hill U.S. Holdco and Caesars Entertainment, Inc., and 5 individual qualifiers, Mr. Thomas Reed, Mr. Anthony Carano, Mr. Edward Quatman, Mr. Eric Hession, and Mr. Brett Junker. As part of this investigation, routine communications were conducted with the applicants, which required submissions of additional information and supplemental documents, all of which was provided in a timely manner. The process by which this investigation was conducted involved extensive research and discovery of any additional information which could be learned about the applicant, associated entities, and the individuals from as many sources available to us. Queries were conducted for any criminal history at the state, local, and even international level. As of the date of this report, the IEB only has authorization to review fingerprint submissions of individual qualifiers who own 10% or more of a corporate applicant. Without access to fingerprint submissions and therefore automated fingerprint identification services known as AFIS, the IEB is unable to run national criminal history checks on individual qualifiers. Investigators utilize criminal record checks through the Department of Criminal Justice Information System, which is a state-specific query and reliant on biographical data only. Civil litigation databases were queried and reviewed regarding any lawsuits filed against the applicant, entities, or individuals. Particular attention is paid to any suits that contain accusations of derogatory or fraudulent business practices. In regard to this specific investigation, no litigation was disclosed or discovered that revealed any such accusations or judgments. Educational degrees, professional licensures, and political donations were also verified. Secretary of State and SEC databases were queried regarding any filings reported by the applicant or qualifying entities. Any results obtained were reviewed for any derogatory information. However, no such information was discovered. Open source and media outlet checks were conducted and reviewed, including social media. All content that was reviewed revealed no derogatory information regarding any of the involved entities or individuals. Also, as part of these investigations, a sample of other jurisdictions in which the applicants are already conducting gaming-related businesses were contacted. All responses received from other jurisdictions revealed no derogatory or disqualifying information regarding their existing licensure or suitability. In-person interviews were conducted of all individual qualifiers and full reports were prepared. As noted in Exhibit 2, there were 2 significant investigative issues that required additional investigative attention and review. Those issues related to Caesar's partnership with an applicant for a Category 2 sports wagering license, and the other was the cyber attack against Caesar Entertainment. Investigators thoroughly reviewed those issues by reviewing materials and discussing them during their interviews with the individual qualifiers. The IEB's review of these issues is discussed in part on pages 67, 68, and 69 of Exhibit 2. After a thorough review of the results of all aspects of the IEB portion of this investigation conducted into the applicant, the associated entities, and the individuals, there were no significant issues or concerns identified beyond the 2 issues previously noted. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Civilian Investigator Murphy. Chair, I'm not sure if you want to proceed with questions at this time, or if you want me just to go through the entire IAB presentation and hold questions to the end. So defer to you, to your preference.
Commissioners, do we have a preference? I know that we have typically in the past held questions till the end. Okay, we're going to continue to do that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm next going to turn it to Division Chief Monica Chang for some introductory remarks before we begin the financial suitability and corporate governance portion of our presentation. Before turning it over to Monica, I just want to note that the underlying presentations that you'll hear from Connor Laughlin and Chris Fitzgerald, I think the IB would be recommending we do those in a closed session. They'll contain information that is both public and non-public throughout their presentation. So just wanted to highlight that, and perhaps this might be a good time to go into the closed session, and of course, would turn it over to Attorney Hendricks as well for his thoughts on that.
Thank you. We would be supportive of moving to a closed session at this time.
All right, commissioners, give me just 1 second. I'm going to make sure I have the correct language. Okay. Thank everyone for giving me just a moment. I wanted to make sure that I did not mess up this process. All right. So I'm going to read the language out of section 7. I did consult with Counselor Stempick to make sure that we didn't have to take a formal vote. But let me read this language and then take the temperature of my fellow commissioners. Any adjudicatory hearing conducted under 205 CMR 101.01 may be closed to the public at the request of either party. Here we have such a request. Or on the commission's own initiative, in order to protect the privacy interests of either party or other individual, to protect proprietary or sensitive technical information, including but not limited to software, algorithms, and trade secrets, or for other good cause shown. Such a determination rests in the sole discretion of the commission. So, commissioners, are we okay with turning this portion over into executive session?
Mr. Chair.
Just private session, not executive session.
Private
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. I had questions that I think are appropriate for private session. I think the only thing I would flag is historically we talk about as much as we can publicly before we move in. So just looking for clarification from Attorney Kramer that we've reached that point in her opinion.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Bryant. I think we have the remarks that the investigators have prepared. I think are cohesive in that they're going to be going back and forth between information that is both public and the non-public, and in order to, I think, provide it in the most comprehensive way, in the way that makes the most sense to the commissioners, it would make sense to do the whole thing in private session.
Okay. My only caveat to going into private, Mr. Chair, is to the extent there's some cluster of facts we can segregate and say publicly at the end for transparency's sake. I think we should do that, but otherwise it makes sense to go into a private session though, I think.
I agree with that, Commissioner O'Brien, that sentiment. Are we good, Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Skinner?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So we will enter into private session. Looks like we're getting invited to join now. We will give everyone just a second. Get back over here. Okay, I see the commissioners. I see Councilor Kramer and Councilor Hendricks. So for the public, we just finished a private session. And so we're re-entering the public session. With that, Ms. Kramer, have we exhausted the IEB's presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The IEB has concluded its presentation.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the IEB or CEC Kramer relative to the report or presentation that we would like to ask at this time?
No questions from me.
For the
I'm
record,
all set as well, Mr. Chairman.
I have nothing further in the public session.
and I also have nothing further. Mr. Hendricks, do you have any questions for Ms. Kramer or other members of the IEB relative to the presentation?
We have no questions about the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councilor Hendricks, we will now turn to you for a presentation.
My pleasure. Rather than formally present on the topics that we just discussed, I would refer back to the record, communicate to the commission and the various investigative exhibits that we have discussed. And then on behalf of the Caesars team, we want to again thank all of you commissioners and chairman, as well as all of the MGC staff members and investigators who assisted in this review. We appreciate this group's expediency and professionalism. In closing, we would note that we believe that Caesars met its burden to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that is suitable for license in Massachusetts, and that our applicant entities and key persons meet the various factors laid out within the enabling statute and regulations. Additionally, we believe that the record reflects that neither Caesars nor its applicants meet any of the disqualifying criteria contained within the statute. Accordingly, we respectfully request approval to receive a durable finding of suitability, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Commissioners, do we have, and let me get this on the record too. So no additional specific witnesses you would like to present for us? Mr. Hendricks, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Hendricks or any of the presenters relative to the presentation by Caesars or any other individuals that we would like to hear from?
I'm all set, Chair.
Thank you.
No,
All
I've
set
not-
as well.
Okay. Does the IEB have any questions for what Mr. Hendricks just presented or said, or for anyone else from Caesars?
No, I do not. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CEC Kramer. We will now turn to specific itemized subject matters from the notice of hearing. With respect to the first bullet from the hearing notice, which states the durable suitability of Caesars pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011, does any commissioner have any questions for any witnesses present here today generally with respect to the durable suitability of Caesars pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011?
Nothing further from me.
And for the record, all right, for the record, everyone agreed, nothing further. With respect to the second bullet from the hearing notice, which states the contents of the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau's suitability report, does any commissioner have any questions for any witnesses present here today regarding this topic? And I should say further questions.
No, nothing further.
From me.
All right, let the record reflect that we have no further questions. Now that we've heard all the evidence in this matter, before we move to closing remarks, I would like to turn to my fellow commissioners one more time to make sure that there's nothing further or if there are any further topic areas that anyone would like to explore, that all of our questions have, and confirm that all of our questions have been answered at this time.
Nothing further.
Nothing further here.
Nothing further.
All right, and so we will now move to closing remarks. Each of the parties will be afforded an opportunity to make a statement summing up their position, though they need not do so. And I will note that Mr. Hendricks made what I would consider something very similar to that earlier. Mr. Hendricks, would you like to proceed with any additional remarks?
Chairman, I would just refer to my earlier remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. CEC Kramer, any further remarks?
Sure, Chair. I'll just have some brief closing remarks. Just want to thank, obviously, the Commission for your time today, and just again want to recognize the members of the IEB who worked on this investigation. I think the Commission is able to see that there was a substantial amount of work that went into this and a lot of collaboration from all of the team members. Just want to recognize everyone who worked on it, including that we were led by, obviously, IEB Director Monahan, Sergeant David Collette on the GEU side, as well as Kevin Murphy and Sergeant Kevin Owen, who worked on that end of the investigation. And just also want to recognize Monica Chang, who put in a significant amount of work managing both our in-house team and the RSM team. It was certainly not a small feat. And as you can see today, there were a number of RSM people that were present and worked on this investigation. I think we saw a lot of small screens, or at least I did. And I just want to thank them all for their time. I know, again, it was a real collaborative effort from everyone, and want to thank, obviously, Chris and Connor for their work here today and presenting to the Commission. And lastly, and not least, I want to thank the applicant for their time and consideration. And just to note, in sum, taking into consideration the entirety of the IEB's investigation, we've concluded that the applicant and each qualifier have established their qualifications for durable suitability, again, based on the factors in 23N, Section 6, 205 CMR 215, and 205 CMR 218, outlined previously by counsel in the IEB report by clear and convincing evidence. The IEB recommends that the Commission find the applicant, American Wagering Inc., or Caesars, and the qualifier suitable, subject to the condition that was outlined in the IEB's report that the individual qualifiers provide updated fingerprints if the IEB is authorized to review them, and that no derogatory information surfaces from such review. Again, as noted in the IEB report, if the IEB were to locate derogatory information as a result of those queries, it would alert the Commission for a reevaluation of suitability. And lastly, I would just remind the Commission that suitability is ongoing. Each qualifier has a duty to maintain suitability during the pendency of any licensure, and to update the IEB on any matters that could reasonably impact suitability, and that the IEB will continue to monitor suitability on an ongoing basis. That concludes the remarks here today, and again, appreciate all of the parties for their time.
Thank you, CEC Kramer. Unless there are any further matters that the parties or my fellow commissioners would like to address, we will now conclude this portion of the proceeding. Does anyone have anything further? Let the record reflect they do not. The Commission will now deliberate about this matter in private. Commissioners, we will have to end this virtual meeting and enter a virtual room for private deliberations. I want to thank CEC Kramer, Mr. Hendricks, and everyone who presented here today, as well as Connor and Chris from RSM. We appreciate it, and Gianna, we appreciate your time. And with that, we are adjourned.